CONNIE GARTSIDE'S Triumph, Chapter 6. It's good to see you again, Mr. O'Donnell. And you too, Ralph. But how many times do I have to ask you to call me Jack? Rosie smiled. It is good to see you, Grandad. How's Mam? I'm afraid she wasn't in a good mood when I left, Rosie, love. In fact, she wasn't in a good mood when I got home from my meeting last night. Oh, no. How did you upset her? Did you get home late? No, I haven't upset her. It's that dastardly blue blot on the landscape. What do you mean? Not what? Who, Rosie? Rosie shook her head. Grandad could be exasperating when he wanted to be. Who then? That circus clown, John Major. Why's he upset, ma'am? Evidently, whilst I was out last night, he was slagging off single parents on the television, going on about so-called family values, saying single mothers were a major British problem and breeders of future generations of thieves, scoundrels and malcontents. Every news bulletin on the radio today repeated the message. No wonder Mum's hungry. I'll ask Mrs. Gartside if I can phone her when I get back. Good for you, Rosie. Anyway, I'm sure she'll sort her head out. I'm looking forward to a quiet break. Thank goodness I can relax here. Are you sure, Grandad? Why shouldn't I be? I might be planning a series of burglaries or muggings or something. I'm the daughter of a single mother, aren't I? I've a feeling you're more likely to channel any errant feelings into more useful and positive outlets, young Rosie. No doubt about that, Ralph agreed. Rosie's a girl of many talents. Oh, aye? What's she been up to now? Grandad, Rosie protested. Ralph laughed. She's taken on the role of advisor and peacemaker to lovelorn couples. Our Connie's upset Mikey Grimsditch again. The youngster stopped in her tracks. Goodness, I wonder if that's what really upset Mikey, she said thoughtfully. What do you mean, Rosie? John Major. Mikey's mother is single too. What if Mikey heard the speech? He might think he has no chance in life, that he's destined to be a delinquent. What if his mum heard the news? My mother's a single parent because she's a widow, Ralph. If she's so upset, just think of the effect on Mikey's mum. She didn't choose to be a single parent. She could be horribly upset as well, and Mikey might be blaming himself for being the cause of all her problems. Have you ever thought of becoming a social worker, Rosie? Grandad asked. No, of course not. I want to change things, not mess about with the symptoms. I'm going to be a political campaigner when I grow up. I'm going to sort out the land thieves and money grubbers and stick up for only common people like us and Mikey's mum. You've got my vote, Ralph retorted. Grandad chuckled. I don't know where she gets her ideas from. Mind you, Rosie, you could be a social worker and a political campaigner. And you have got to stop telling fibs, Grandad. You know very well where I get most of my ideas from. Grandad chuckled again. Chip off the old block, Ralph interjected. Less of the old, Grandad responded. Typical, Rosie said, shaking her head. Ralph and Grandad looked at her. What do you mean? Ralph finally asked. Both of you assumed I was referring to Grandad's ideas, but I wasn't. Well, not entirely. So, who exactly did you mean? The other communist in my life, my friend and mass trespasser, Benny Rothman. Good girl, Connie, that's all sorted. Let's have a break. Jed, how about putting the kettle on? Connie laughed. Feyther's fast asleep. Typical man. Go and give him a prod, Connie. Tell him he either makes us a brew or we're going on strike. Tell him we're joining the Wages for Housework campaign. Before Connie could make a move, Mr. Gartside gave out a final, explosive snore and looked across at them, his face a portrait of innocence. Would you like a brew, Elsie? Oh, that's so very thoughtful of you, dear. He hauled himself out to his more than comfortable armchair with a grunt. Put kettle on, Connie, love. I'll get cups. Connie looked at her mother, a frown on her brow. Mrs. Gartside laughed. At that point the telephone rang. Connie was across the room before her parents had time to react. Looks as though you're putting kettle on after all, Jed, Elsie instructed. Gartside Farm? Yes. Oh dear. No, don't worry. I'm sure that will be fine, Mrs. Gorbooth. Yes. Just leave your car on the track once you are through the farm gate. Then walk round the back and through the yard. Yes. See you in about half an hour then. Bye. What's going on, Connie? Your paying guests have had a change of heart, Mum. Seems they were going to eat at the Sportsman. Evidently, they now prefer to eat here. You have to be joking. No, I'm not. Shall I go and give the fire a poke in the front room? Yes, love. But what am I going to do about food? You'll have to give them ours, I expect. This is the last thing I need. Don't worry, Mum. We'll manage. There's plenty of cold roast beef and roast ham, with homemade cheese. We're not going to go short. Mrs. Gartside shook her head and then smiled. Connie could always find the bright side of any cloud. Right, you go and get that fire roaring. At least they can eat their humble fare in a warm and pleasant room. They probably won't want to eat with us. I could always eat in the Sportsman, Elsie. That's ever so thoughtful, Jed. But there's plenty for you here. Are you sure, lass? I dunna mind. Well, I do. Now go and make that brew afore I think of something else for you to do. Wow, what make of car's that, Grandad? Looks like a Bentley, love. Somebody with brass slumming it in the Sportsman, no doubt, Ralph added. At that point, a middle-aged, well-dressed couple emerged from the pub. Of all the places to bring me, Robert, the woman exclaimed, full of working-class riffraff with their walking boots and their sweat. Never mind, my dear, we'll soon be at the farm. He strode across the road and opened the passenger door for her. She took her seat with a swish of nylon and a flash of thigh as she tucked her legs into place. Having closed the door carefully, the gentleman looked up at the sky for a moment, as if for inspiration, or patience perhaps. The sound of approaching boots attracted his attention. He turned to them. "Excuse me," he asked in a home counties drawl. "Could you be so kind as to direct me to Colwell Clough? I'm heading for Gartside's farm." "That's where we're heading," Rosie responded. Grandad noticed she seemed to emphasise her Manchester accent, almost as if she was drawing attention to her working-class roots. He intervened. "If you continue in direction your car's facing and take first right immediately after the campsite, you're on the right road. Eventually, the lane will begin to climb fairly steeply, and you'll find yourself travelling beneath a tunnel of trees. Immediately after, you'll see a tall stone barn, and the farmhouse adjoining it. Immediately after, turn left and stop. The farm gate will be closed. Once you're through it, you can park anywhere, but my advice is to keep to the left. They may need to use tractor in the morning." "Thank you, my man." That was extremely clear. With that he turned on his heel, walked in front of the car and accessed the driving seat. The well-appointed car moved on its way with a purr. "He could have offered us a lift," Rosie observed. "He could have refrained from calling me his man, and my own man and a citizen of the world." "We could be in for an interesting weekend," Ralph responded, "but I'm sure I've seen that face before." "He didn't sound local," Rosie pointed out. "The knobs have their own particular and peculiar accent, Rosie, irrespective of which part of the country they're from. In the main, they go to the same public schools." They continued on their way, Ralph wondering how his parents would react to their guest's